Hello and welcome to the Health Wizard podcast. I'm your host, Yelena Isolde Medici, a health and life coach. I'm so excited that you're choosing to listen to my podcast because you are choosing to make your health your priority. The Health Wizard podcast is dedicated to teaching natural, easy to implement practices that you can use to get your health on track and become the person you used to be before getting sick and the person you're dreaming of becoming again, happy, healthy, full of energy, and living a life filled with joy. Now, very quickly, before we dive into the good stuff, I want to remind you that this podcast is intended for education and entertainment purposes only. This podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice. If you have a medical condition, please seek the help of a licensed medical professional. I am not a medical doctor. I do not treat, diagnose, prescribe, or make claims outside of my areas of expertise. So by choosing to listen to the Health Wizard podcast, you take full responsibility for your own actions. And when you hear the testimonials of the people who were able to get well, realize that their outcomes depended on their effort and their specific situation. With that said, let's jump into today's episode. Please enjoy. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Health Wizard podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the 9 reasons why women get sicker more than men and 9 ways to fix it. Today, I'm joined by Ringel. She's my assistant coach, and she's also a former client of mine. When Ringel came to me just over 3 years ago, her life was falling apart. She was sick. She was diagnosed with Hashimoto's pituitary tumor. She lost her business to her illness, and her biggest cry at that time was, I just want to die because I cannot take on this life anymore. Ringel since had turned her health around. She's 100% better. She reclaimed her health. She got rid of medications. She's living her life to the fullest. And today I asked her to join me on this podcast because Ringel is a trained psychologist. Her master's degree is in psychology, so she truly understands a human psychological state of being. Without further ado, let me have Ringel introduce herself, and then we're going to dive into today's topic.
Hi, it's so good to be here, and I'm so excited to speak about this topic that we have for today. But shortly about myself, it's been over 3 years since I graduated from the program 360 Impact Health. At that time, it was only 2-month program, and I came with 40 symptoms. I had hypothyroidism, pituitary tumor, and I was struggling. I had my business, I had family to take care, and I couldn't take care of myself. So it was hard. I went back and forth to different doctors here in America and in Lithuania, and medication didn't help me. Doctors didn't help me. I was researching for help, and this is how I found you, Elena. And it's been a journey, but it was a wonderful journey of my own healing and now helping others to heal. So in 2 months, I overcome all the symptoms. I was medication free, and it changed my life. It saved my life. I found the purpose, and I wanted to join your team since then. So it's been a year and a half now since I'm with you, with 360 Tribe, and I couldn't be happier. It feels amazing to help others. And for me, it's amazing because I really can understand what they are going through. I've been in their shoes, so I can, relate to them. They can relate to me and trust that, this program is working and it's powerful. So
It
yes.
is. And the reason I have Ringel on, and of course I'm going to have a lot more from now on, is because today's topic has a lot to do with women. And being that I healed myself from hypothyroidism, a pituitary tumor, which were actually, Ringel is same problems that she was going through, just my symptoms were slightly different. And then infertility for me, and then Ringel did that too. We definitely know firsthand what it feels like to be a woman and to have a thyroid or hormone or an autoimmune disease. So today's topic, it is going to be so close to so many of you. The 9 reasons why women get sicker than men and 9 ways to fix that problem. Now, I've been a health coach for over a decade now, Ringel, and I've seen it that every year it seems like more and more people get sick, but I'm also especially noticing that it's more and more women that are getting diagnosed. There has been conversation in the medical community that maybe more women are getting diagnosed because women are more sensitive to their needs and they're going to doctors more. But as I dug into this topic in preparation for today's podcast, I found that is not necessarily the truth. And today I wanted to discuss the reasons why. And what we see is there is a skyrocketing number of thyroid issues, especially, and we'll cover as to why today, autoimmune diseases, hormonal imbalances. There's, of course, the female cancers are going up, obesity rates, which are leading to hormone imbalances, and then many, many other conditions. But we will hyper focus on what we deal with on a regular basis, and that will be thyroid conditions such as hyperthyroidism, Graves' disease, Hashimoto's thyroid eye disease, goiters, hormonal disorders such as PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, fibroid tumors, estrogen dominance, and of course, autoimmune diseases that include Graves' disease, Hashimoto's, and other autoimmune conditions. So let's dive into it. And I want us to kick off with reason number one. I believe that one of the first initial reasons that more women are getting sick than men is because women are conditioned from very early in our childhood to be perfect in a lot of ways. We need to be good enough to be loved. We need to look good enough for something. We need to behave a certain way. We're conditioned by our parents, our teachers. It could be religion, society, schooling, whatever it is, that we have some higher standards. For example, if a woman gets up in the morning, she's going to spend an hour and a half getting ready. When the guy gets up in the morning, it's like 10, 15 minutes later, boom, he's eating his breakfast. So we see there's already disparity in time that we dedicate to our life as women between what we do and what men do. And of course, some of it is our choices, but I do believe that we are conditioned into it. Where do you see how women get disconnected from this themselves through this process of being told and conditioned by the parents and the society of what we need to become?
Yes, I think it's very relative that it's happening through the very, very early age. And that happens for women more because we are more sensitive and we are emotionally more sensitive. So whatever comes our way, we absorb it more into our body, into our mind, and then we got conditioned to live it with the whole life. So if we were told that, we have to be certain way, behave certain way, we follow that as our rules and our belief system. That is how it forms. So that is how we just regularly wanting to be perfect for
wanting
everybody.
to be perfect, because perfection is quite an illusion, isn't it? I've worked with a lot of women who strive for perfectionism, yet they're so stressed because they never seem to achieve it.
And because we are not living our own life and our own purpose and our own, intuition, whatever it is, because we were told something to do, we were told how to behave, we were told how we have to look, and it's not us. Because
and I'm interrupting here, but you're absolutely spot on, right? You don't say a certain way, you don't sit a certain way, you don't dress a certain way, because why? Because you cannot trust yourself. You're not smart enough. Yes. You're a child. You shouldn't speak at a certain time. So immediately, unless we're fortunate to have really great parents, from the very early on in our lives, what are we taught to do? Not trust our own intuition, our own gut.
So that really becomes our norm. This is how we live our life. We wake up, we take care of others, we think, how we need to present ourselves to the world, how we have to behave, what's good and what's not. But we learn not to even ask ourselves how we feel and how we want to be, because at the early age, we were told that's not true and that doesn't matter at all. So that's how we come through life, putting everything down, what we feel and what it's, important for us. We numb ourselves and we go through life just following the society, the norms, the rules, and living just on the surface and not from within. So it's affect us. And one day, one way or another way, it comes out eventually.
Yeah. And why do we do so? Why do we try to fit into the societal expectations or parental expectations? It's all for the sake of love and acceptance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why else? It's if you go look back into the human history as we're evolving as humanity, and now whether you're a creationist or an evolutionist, it does not matter, because as humanity, as a society, we did evolve to what we are now. We always looked at self-preservation, and the self-preservation was, I need to get along with others. I need to be approved by others and accepted by others in order not to be expelled and not die on my own. So those survival skills are still very much built into it. And especially if you go into early childhood, and if your mother says, Ringel, you have to be a certain way to be a good girl and to be loved, because you see that her desire for you, your actually desire to meet her instructions is how you get her love and approval, then you spend all of your life people pleasing and chasing after that. And this is something I believe you're familiar with. And what it does in the process, and this is reason number two that women are getting sicker more frequently than men, is that we create more trauma. Now, it doesn't mean that men don't have their own traumatic experiences. In any of these cases, I'm not saying that men are not going through similar parallel experiences as what we're going through, but we're focusing on women. And I believe so that women do experience more trauma in their lives than men. When we're looking at the cumulative, we're looking at sexual trauma, emotional trauma, psychological trauma. So all of that really creates more trauma. Women are more likely to be sexually assaulted, sexually abused than men. What happens is this need to get accepted, to get approved, creates stress in the body. We become disconnected, but that also creates trauma. And if we take this trauma to people please, to be accepted, and add in all of the other forms of trauma, now we're more likely to develop chronic conditions, because now the body goes into a flight or fight mode. And this is where your body suspends all of its normal processes, produces a lot of cortisol, produces a lot of hormones of stress, and you're basically suspended in time and space, not doing what your body is supposed to do, but barely surviving altogether.
I wanted to add a little bit to this because I think women get more physical, sexual, whatever trauma they get through life, because again, it's the norm and the belief that women are the weaker. So it is easier to attack them. It is easier to misbehave with them because they will, hide from everybody because they still want to be accepted. So they will not talk to people. And another thing with all the trauma, men, even if the childhood, if they get into the physical or something, they release their stress and something through physical as well. That's why we see kids, boys get into, fights more often because they have to release that energy. Women, they hold inside. They become shy. They shut off. They do not tell to anybody, and they also get other emotions on top of that stress and trauma. They get guilt because it's happening because of me. They get shame. They get all the different stories. So that's why women, I think, also get more sick and more available for the illnesses, because they do not release the trauma and they are considered a weaker gender.
Yeah, and there is, and it's of course we live in still a male dominant society.
Yes.
And I'm not one to say that women need to overtake and overthrow. I'm more about an egalitarian society, but we still live in a very male dominant society right now. If you were to go see a doctor, you're more likely to get a male doctor than a female doctor. There's a lot of medicines that are developed. They are first experimented on men as opposed to women. So a lot of the society is still shifted and slanted in the direction of a male dominant society. Now, I'm not here to start a revolution and say that men's lives don't matter, everybody's does, but it just to acknowledge that there's disparity that you're pointing to, where women are more susceptible to shame than men. If we're going to look into Middle Eastern countries where there's still even more male dominant societies, where males can go and have multiple sexual partners.
Yeah.
And if a woman is caught in with more than her husband, she can be actually stoned to death. So there's already that disparity happening. And add the shame that you mentioned to this equation, that creates trauma.
Yes, everything leads to trauma eventually.
The body, there's a wonderful book, it's called The Body Keeps the Score. Trauma lives in the body. It lives in your psyche, it lives in your heart, it lives in your soul, but every single cell in our body will remember that trauma. And this is something that we're going to dive really deeply in the next episode of the Health Wizard podcast when we talk about trauma and generational trauma. But what's very important to know is that any stress that is not completed in the body, that is not finished, that we carry from year to year to year, becomes a traumatic imprint on the body. And this is why women are very prone to having anxiety attacks and panic attacks and depression, because when we don't allow the emotions to be completed, especially if there is judgment from the society, from parents, from maybe the religious circles that you're in, that if you say certain things or open up about certain truth, you will be judged. So we keep it on. I know that when I was among religious people, where I've seen a lot of health issues happen, is it was believed that people who believe in God for some reason cannot have depression or anxiety because you're supposed to just open your heart and let God handle it all. And God forbid you're struggling, then there is a stigma and you are not good enough anymore. So we've seen that, and it's religious and non-religious circles alike, but trauma does build up in the body. And you and I both have seen what trauma can do.
I would never wish to anybody to go through that. And trauma really affects every area of person's life. It doesn't matter if it was, physical, emotional trauma, whatever it is, if it's still in your body, if it's still in your, mind and your head and your heart, it will affect eventually your life. It will affect your relationships, professional life, health, especially health. And it comes out at the beginning. It might come with a few symptoms, and then it starts and adds and adds and adds. And this is how we see people getting more and more sick, because every day we cannot avoid stress. And if we have already body full of trauma, stress, trapped emotions, all of the experiences that we keep to ourselves, and all these emotions, negative emotions, and all this perfectionism and striving to be and striving to prove that we still can be perfect. It's never ending story. But every day we go to work, we go to this world, to pandemics, to everything that is happening. So it adds on us, and it eventually comes out of the body as an illness. That's how we see that more people are diagnosed, more people are feeling sick, more people are looking for help, because it has to be released. It has to be addressed.
But it doesn't get really addressed, especially you mentioned the pandemic. People are locked up in their homes now. They're working from home. They're homeschooling like you and I. Your kids are back in school. My kid is still, I'm homeschooling from home. So there is more stress. And depending on your personality type, introvert versus extrovert, some of that stress can build up more and more. And if it's not released, it becomes a traumatic experience. Or let's say you're that I want to be perfect mama type of parent, and all of a sudden you're working from home and you're doing all of your household chores and responsibilities, and you're homeschooling, and all of a sudden you yell at your kid and there's now shame. I'm not as good as I thought I would be. I mean, we all live through that, right? My child is going through developmental stages when she lives to push my buttons. And each day I go, I'm supposed to be better than this. How did I lose my patience here? And so a lot of us, if we don't know how to walk through this process and release that trauma, it will get stuck. And this is where we see men and women, they're going to go to the bottle, right? There is going to be some kind of medication. So antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications. There will be some ways that we're going to look to cope with it. However, coping with trauma does not address the root cause of trauma. So what it does, in turn, it just keeps it deeper and buries it much, much deeper instead of being released, which long-term, what we see, and there were studies done back in 1940s and 50s, which pointed very directly to something that I had hypothesized and then also observed in my practice, that people who had lived through traumatic experiences, especially neglect, abuse, sexual trauma, they're more likely to develop autoimmune conditions. And the reason that this happens in the process is when you're attacked by some force outside of yourself, and then you go and you blame yourself, as Ringel, you alluded to, for being attacked. As the psyche attacks itself, the body says, I'm taking my clues from your emotions. Okay, you're attacking yourself, I'm going to attack myself too. Yes. So the breakdown happens on both the emotional level and physiological level, because if you're attacking yourself emotionally, you're not good enough, fill in the blank, you're not worthy of love. The body goes, okay, I need to catch up with this, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I personally believe this is a way for our bodies trying to, I call it self-suicide, to kill us ourselves faster so we can leave this human experience. So many of us are not going to go and commit suicide. But when you constantly punish yourself for things that you know to be a reality, what you're doing in essence is you're trying to say, I cannot take this life. I need to take myself out. And the physiological body responds to that and goes, okay, the only way I know how to take you out of the situation is if I make you sicker, so you die sooner.
That's what happened to me when I was like stressing and when I was sick and when I was unhappy in my life and I knew that something is going on. I didn't know, I didn't have tools, I didn't have support, I went to doctors told you are fine, take medicine. You go to your family, of course they want to support you, but they don't know how you feel. They're not in your shoes, they don't know what's going on in you. And I didn't know what's going on because it was so buried inside. I knew something is wrong, I knew something is going on, but didn't know. So instead of calming myself down, being nice to myself, I was praying for something to happen to stop me. I was asking to get sick. I remember my thought, it was like, the only way for me to stop and get out of this situation is to get sick. And when I got sick, the only option that I was thinking, I was like, I want to die, because that was eventually my inner dialogue.
It's subconscious. It's not like you're walking around with a knife or a gun in your hand saying, I'm going to take myself out, but you're looking for opportunities in the subconscious mind. If you ask it and if you suggest it long enough, is going to look for ways to fulfill that wish. And this is something that unfortunately the medical community is not embracing yet, but I know it's something that they might embrace in the next couple of 100 years, is that psychologically, the subconscious story that we're telling ourselves is always fulfilled in this real world, in the expression of the body, the self, the relationships, the finances, and everything else that comes apart. But we don't just stop at trauma, right? That was our reason number 2. We have traumatic experiences. We compound on it because now we are in the 20th and 21st century now, where women are more liberated. We're going to work, and now women are expected to do as much as men did. And then more. So we're not only now mothers and spouses and maybe church members and siblings and whatever else, we are serving others, but now we are employees, we're bosses, we are running the world, and we still want to be perfect in everything. Now we still keep all of the responsibilities that were thrust upon us from our birth. And now just to add the cherry on top, where it's more like the straw that breaks the camel back, we're bringing in an additional way to stress ourselves. Now, having a job or a business is not a bad thing. Both of us, so you're working, I have a business, you have a business. It can be good, but we're expected to be perfect at everything. We're still expected to look amazing and to be slim and to get along with our spouses and have an amazing romantic life, and for our children to love and adore us, and for us to have the perfect children. And by the time you're done, it feels like we're out of breath all completely.
Yeah, and to cook and to clean and to be, a part of community and be a good daughter and be a good neighbor and participate in schools for kids, because it's everything on the shoulders. And yes, absolutely, it adds additional stress to us.
It gets a little overwhelming, right? But what happens when we add extra responsibilities? We need more time. So on average, we'll work actually longer hours than most men do as women, because now we have our responsibility plus the job or the business. And when you're working longer hours, you have to, the saying goes, you have to rob Peter to pay Paul, right? So we take it from our sleep, we take it from our time that we should be dedicating to self-care, and we're allotting that to keeping up with the Joneses, or just to keep up with our expectations. And on average, women do sleep less than men. Now, what happens when we sleep a lot less than we're supposed to?
Yes, when we don't sleep enough, absolutely everything, our health is affected, our cells are not able to reproduce, rejuvenate, our stress, it's always on the run, it's the cortisol high, we are fight or flight, it's just not rested. And again, it affects every day, every area of our lives. Don't have enough energy. We have mood swings. We have hair loss. We have weight gain. We have anxiety. And again, everything with that comes that we are not perfect, and we feel even worse about ourselves because that adds on. So yeah. And again, with the sleep, it used to think that if I didn't sleep for, the whole week, I can catch up during the weekend. It's not true. Actually, we don't have the reserve for sleep. So if you took out a few hours from your sleep schedule and routine, you will not be able to catch up. And the less sleep you have, the your lifespan shortens, you are more prone to diseases, and you are more prone to many different situations. So sleep is one of the most important things for health, and the cheapest, right?
Yes, it doesn't actually. You don't need any coaching. You don't need any medicine. You can just sleep. Now, a lot of people who get into always robbing themselves of sleep and living in this anxiety and stress, eventually you will struggle with insomnia. Going to the pill, while it might be short-term solution, is not a long-term solution. But yeah, it's a great point, Rimgali. As teenagers, we always feel like we can conquer the world in 2 hours of sleep. And in America, it is highly encouraged because
Yes.
if you don't hustle enough, you cannot be successful enough. So we created this falsehood of expectations that the more successful you want to be, the fewer hours of sleep. And then just look, one of my favorite shows used to be, I no longer watch it, Shark Tank. And on Shark Tank, there's a Mark Cuban. He's an American billionaire, and he always talks about, you hustled, great job, you barely slept, you did this. And I always watched it horrified. We are creating this society where you're praised for abusing your body, as opposed to saying, listen, find a different way to create your dream. Find a different way to create your business to where you're not missing out on birthdays and you're not missing out on sleep, and you achieve what you can achieve in life. But without sleep, one of the biggest things that we see with women that you touched on is weight gain, right? Again, if you compare men versus women on weight gain, men always get a free pass for the most part to be overweight, especially they get married, we call it beer belly, so lovingly and kindly. And women, oh my God, they'll line up right now. I saw this on LinkedIn yesterday. There are multiple sources pointing out to the fact that all of the weight loss programs right now, when it comes to revenue, are on a rise right now. So Weight Watchers and what's the app called? Noom, right? Or was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're making a lot more money because now there's that quarantine 15 extra pounds because people are staying at home. But what we know long term is not going to solve the problem, right?
Yes, it's not the quick fix, it's a lifestyle, it's habits. And if you will go after weight loss programs, but after you quit them and you go back to your habits, or you still will lack sleep or anything, that it's not healthy, you will gain double. That's what we see in people.
Mhm.
And if you do not address stress, if you don't take care of yourself, you will gain back everything.
Yeah. And then become stressful. No
Of
matter
course.
what I do, I can never lose weight. Oh my God, I just lost 30 pounds and I feel amazing. And 3 months later, the 30 pounds plus five are back on because it's not a lifestyle. It's not manageable. It's not sustainable.
And I think it's too much, highlight on that weight. I like what we do at 360. We focus on how you feel. We address, first and foremost, our health, and weight loss comes as a bonus, and it's sustainable, and you don't need to think about as a weight because it's natural. And what the weight loss programs does, it's so focused on counting, measuring, cutting off, focusing on this and this and this, and people jump from one program to another program just to keep sustainability. But then overall, going into the weekend, they're stressing they can't have this or this they enjoy. It's again stressful, and that's not good.
And it goes back to women feeling like we need to be perfect at
Yes.
everything.
And
Uh,
competition and everything goes in hand with that as well.
Yeah,
So
I recently read a book. It's called Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima or Lima. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but she basically built a cosmetics company from nothing, and then she sold it for $1 billion. But she was in some meeting where she met a woman that was like the godmother of women in business. She was some big CEO, CFO. And so Jamie says that she approached her and she says, well, can I ask you this one question? I talk to a lot of women business owners and they all feel that they're pressed and pushed into this perfection. They need to look perfect. They need to do this perfect. Didn't you ever feel pressured by being the perfect weight? So that woman takes a moment to think and she goes, no, which surprised Jamie very much. And she goes, can you expound on this a little bit? And her answer is something that it's like Bible truth for me. She said, when you have so much on your plate, when you already have so many expectations, something's got to give. And for some of us, it could be weight. So you have extra 10 pounds. As long as you're in a healthy range, so what? So maybe you have an extra roll or something else. Maybe you need to wear Spanx when you go to a party, but you can't possibly be perfect at everything because something is going to snap. As long as you're healthy and you're a great mother and you're great at everything else, that extra 5 pounds, I'm like, bring it on. Back in the day, just a few hundred years ago, when you see women on images and portraits and
Yes.
paintings, they were all this lusciously full women and now have sticks walking around on runway and we're supposed to live up to this imaginary perfection that nobody can sustain. So we have been run down, we have been fooled into this perfection, and we have created trauma, we have created anxieties around it. We will get to our 9 ways to release that trauma, which we'll cover shortly. But this leads me to reason number 5. Women do not prioritize themselves. What we have seen, you've seen it now, Ringel, working with me for a year and a half, and I've seen it in over 10 years of practice, is you get a woman on a call. Sometimes they get on calls with their husbands and we'll go through the process and then we get down to the options. We'll tell them how much the fees are. And then you see this blank look coming over and they go, well, Johnny needs new boots and Mary wants to go to an art school and this is this and this is that. And before you know it, I go, where do you fit in on that list? They feel, and this is reason number 6, that women are getting sicker than men more so than not, is because women do not feel worthy of spending money on themselves. These 2 reasons, they go hand in hand together. But I seen it without a fail. I think it was about 3 years ago. I was on a call with a woman. She had Hashimoto's, really needed help. She had so many symptoms. The husband is sitting next to her, Ringale, and he tells her, honey, just do it. We have the money, just do it. And she sits there and she's hyperventilating. And when we tapped into it, I said, what is the reason that you cannot say yes to yourself? She said, I do not feel worthy of spending that much money on myself. My big question to her was, okay, your husband is right next to you. If your husband lived with the same condition, going through the same situation, would you hesitate even for a moment? She said no. But when it came to her needs, to herself, she just couldn't do it. So the reason I see this two reasons is women do not prioritize their health. They put everybody else above themselves. And you're a mother, so you know it yourself, Ringale, right? You get up in the morning, we take care of the kids. We make a meal. Kids are off to school. We're now working. Now we have to make a meal. Now you're running off to pick up your kids from school. Now they have activities. By the time the day is done, was there any time dedicated to Ringale? Now, for you and I, the answer is yes, right? Because we've learned the ropes. We know how to do it. But for most people, the answer is no.
And that's sad because I know both sides. Before I got sick, I was one of those women who never, ever thought about myself, never asked how I feel, never, even if I felt bad, asked the question why. I was never a priority. I was always like, demand my kids to eat healthy, but I would drink 5 cups of coffee to run my body. And never, ever, I would never even, consider giving my kids cola because it has caffeine, it's bad, and it has this and this, but I would drink 5 cups of coffee.
Yeah, because you had a business to run,
because
right?
I had to run, and it was never a priority to take care of myself. Everybody else were more important than me. Yeah. And it's sad. And now I know, because at the end of the day, everything starts from us. We are an examples. We are the ones who run the whole, household. We are the ones who take care. And that was my, revelation when I had, it could be, I think it's you who asked, like, I was like, oh, I need to take care of my kids and this and this and this. And then when I was sick, I was asked, like, so when you will die, who will take care of them?
Sounds like a Elena question.
And that was like, oh my God. I'm like, as long as they're healthy, good, good, good. But then if I will, get out of this world, who would take care of them?
Yeah, I was talking to a woman once. She ended up being a client and we fixed her health issues. We're sitting on a call similar to that. And she goes, well, what about the money? And we're talking through it. I said, well, do you have an emergency account set up? She said, yeah, I have an emergency account set up for, I said, what for? She goes, well, the roof, the tires and all. I said, oh, is there an emergency account for you? And she sat there and just dawned on her, mind you, she was a nurse. She goes, no, I don't have an emergency account set up for me. That was her big aha moment and big revelation that everything was a priority except the person who we do everything for, which is ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We had the kids for ourselves. We got married or we have a partner for ourselves. We run businesses so that we can somehow be in love with our lives. But at the end of the day, we just get so far out, pushed back that we don't even remember that it is for ourselves anymore.
Exactly.
Tragedy, but I think that men do know a little bit and prioritize their health a little bit better. It is a known fact that men are not as likely as women to go see doctors, but when they do and they find out that there's a problem, they will address it, as opposed to us. They'll be, most of the times we'll say, oh, whatever the doctor says, but then we'll leave it at that because we are too afraid to put ourselves as a priority. Patch up the broken, right? If the roof is leaking and we're on the roof, patch it up and put it right back out into the workforce.
And again, sometimes it's just our differences, men, their logic, there is a problem, I need to fix it. Women are emotional and they get involved into these emotions and overthinking about all this, like, oh, I can do it myself. Oh, I can, it's not as bad. Oh, I can do this more and more. And then they get, distracted from the whole situation. And that's how it affects us. Men, they're always, if something is wrong, they don't like the job, they will change. They will go and find a different one. Women, they will keep going because they have to do this. They have to be nice. They can't say this. They feel ashamed. They feel that they are not good enough or something like that. Men, they just do it.
Did I mention that Ringel has a master's in psychology? So it comes from a lot of her deep experience in knowing what people are like. But you're absolutely right. We take a lot more, excuse my French, crap from people than a man would. A man would be like, over.
Yeah,
now, for me, it's easy because I train myself, but I work with women. We're pushovers as generally as a gender. We say yes to a lot of things that we're not supposed to say yes to. Men are more likely to say, hey, no, I can't. My husband was recently invited to a guys get together and he's like, nah, I'm just going to stay home and read a book. Mm-hmm. He didn't feel obligated. He didn't feel like badly for saying that. He was like, no, but what do women do? Ooh, maybe I should go because if I don't, it's going to hurt somebody's feelings and we're going to justify about anything. Exactly. That's our ammo. Well, let's move into reason number 7 as to why women are getting more sicker than men. For me, I find in my book that men usually don't take as many prescription drugs as women do. Because they are the kind that we're going to tough it out for a bit and we're going to do it. Not always great, but we are more likely as women to go seek medical advice. And most doctors are only trained in medications and surgery, so they recommend it to us. And because we primarily deal and work with women, we have some male clients, but most of our clients are females. We see that women will take one medication after another. There's the thyroid medication. There can be medication for high blood pressure or for PCOS. And now those medications are causing side effects and symptoms. What do women do? They'll listen to their doctors and they will take antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications or something else. And before you know, I had doctors, Rimkali, not doctors. I had clients, Rimkali, that sometimes would take up to 10, 15 medications.
Yes.
And the more medications we're taking, the more what happens. Side effects. And the more side effects, the more what happens. We're given more medications. And one of the big things that happens with women that men never do is taking birth control medications, which is one of the biggest offenders when it comes to creating hormonal, thyroid, and autoimmune conditions.
And again, since we as women go to see more doctors. Again, we are raised to trust authorities. We are raised to believe that doctors and everybody wants good for us. So we trust them. And we as a woman want to trust, want to feel, that we are taken care of. So that's a cycle. That's a cycle. And on the other hand, women are treated as always mental. It's either PMS, it's
Let's
either
talk about
this,
that,
this,
sister.
and this.
Yes.
And we had prescribed on medications, and you have to go home and be happy. If you come, that's what happened to me when I was sick, and they prescribed me antidepressants because the medication for thyroid didn't work. And they say you have to take antidepressants. It will help. And I'm like, it's not mental. It's I'm like,
no, see, when the doctor runs out, especially, and we know there are a lot of male doctors.
yes.
And if you're a male doctor who's listening, then really listen up. They look at a woman. Just like back in the day in 1900s, they used to diagnose women with hysteria, right?
Yeah.
If there's a hormonal imbalance, it's hysteria. Let's either stimulate you or just have a hysterectomy. That's where the word is coming from. And let's cut it all out. And which actually, so reason number 7 and reason number 8 are really tied in together. Reason number 8 being that women are more likely than men to surrender to the quote unquote professional opinion of doctors, which leads to overtreatment, overprescribing, and making feel less than, because it's in your head. If you tell my husband, if he goes to a doctor, that this is in your head, you better watch out. But you tell a woman, I've seen women cry. I would coach them. I had a client from New Zealand about 6-7 years ago. And I coach our clients, as you do now, to how they can advocate for themselves and how to stand up for themselves. And this poor woman has been pushed around by her medical doctor for many, many years. So I coach her, get this labs done. She gets her labs done. I go, okay, this is what you tell your doctor, go in to ask. She goes in, she stands up for herself for the first time ever. Then she emails me. She said, I left that office and I was shaking as a leaf. It was so different to stand up, to speak my truth, to tell them, no, this is my body, my decision. You are not going to bully me into more medications. You are not going to bully me into surgery. I just spoke with somebody today, and this young woman was just diagnosed with Graves' disease. And before any treatment the doctor proposes, he immediately tells her, you need to either have radioactive treatment of your thyroid or cut it out or altogether. That's it. And women are pushovers. What do we do? Yes, doctor. Now, not all of us women come on. There are a lot of you strong ladies that are listening right now. Ringel and I are in that category. We will speak for ourselves, but majority of women are bullied into submitting to authority. Ringel, that goes back to what you just said.
Yes. And we submit to authority. We get scared, and it's our, fight or flight situation. Our instincts turn off, and we become we just want to feel good, and we trust somebody, and that's the end. We want to help ourselves, and we trust the people, and we trust medication, and we trust that they know what they are doing and that they want for us good. But since we were programmed not to trust ourselves, not to question authority, just please everybody, be perfect, be good, trust and do the things. This is how we end up trusting them and doing what's not even raising a question and getting the second or third opinion. We just
most clients who come to us now, a lot of them had experience. They go from doctor to doctor, but it's not usually from second, third opinion. They go, can somebody prescribe me a better medication than the one before? Getting second, third opinion should be like this. I hear you, my numbers might be off, but maybe was there a machine error or a human error? Oh, let's retest my labs. Let's go talk to another specialist who can take a different perspective on this. I had a client a couple of years ago. We're working with her. She's doing better. Her symptoms start to evaporate one by one. She goes to see her doctor, and all of a sudden she comes back panicking. I said, what's going on? So, well, my numbers are off. So I'm looking at her labs. Actually, she didn't send her labs, and she's just sent me the numbers, not the lab itself. I didn't have a printout. And they're telling her that her thyroid is worse off than it was before.
Also, she's feeling better.
But she's feeling better. And now she's panicking. If I'm doing all that is right, why am I not doing right? And we're back and forth. I said, call your doctor, get a copy of your lab. Guess what happens? They're going, oh my God, we're so sorry. They pulled up an old lab and the nurse misread it and they put this woman on higher medications, but the lab was from like a year ago and the current labs were not even looked at. Where in her current labs, the numbers were much better. Now, not that numbers really matter as much because we can tinker with numbers by adjusting medications, cutting out thyroid or doing things. But in this situation, it was human error, was not even questioned. Had that woman not had me in her corner pushing her for truth, she would have been mistreated ongoingly for a long time. Not to be surprised, right? The medical error is the third leading cause of death in America. Now let that sink in.
And we trust them like 100%.
Yeah, and women do more so than men. Now, shall we finish it with a bang with number 9? Reason number 9. So women are getting sicker more than men. And this is going to our conditioning and to our vanity and back to our conditioning that we need to be perfect and look perfect and be a certain way. And that goes that women are more likely than men to get beauty treatments. And this includes injections. This includes implants. This includes all the chemical peels, everything that women do in order to look youthful, be vibrant, and just fit right into what our social media driven society right now is demanding of us.
It's damaging. It's so damaging. It's how in the world we don't think how it affects us, because a lot of people are still conditioned to take care of their, outside instead of, taking care on the inside.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of great examples, right? We're in the world of Kardashians. We're in the world of perfection somewhere
And
somehow.
everything is about money and fame and looks. It's outside. It's outside. It's the facade.
Yeah. So this has a multi-layered negative effect on us as women. First one is we don't love what we are, right? There's self-loathing. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not good enough. I am just not enough. Fill in the blank of what you're not enough. On the flip side, though, there's a medical list of side effects that it comes with. Injectables, just let's look at Botox. It's poison. You're injecting yourself with poison. More than one woman reached out to me where I heard a story like this, Ringel. I was okay up until I got Botox. And then hypothyroidism, autoimmune diseases, you just name it. It could trigger different things in different people. Or the breast implants. Let's talk about how horrible that is. You're taking a foreign body that has not been studied for hundreds of years, and you're sticking it into your body, and the body goes, ooh, a foreign object. What happens when we put a foreign object?
Yeah.
The body goes, let's produce
rid.
antibodies. Let's reject it. And outside you go, ooh, I look beautiful, I look gorgeous. I don't know what's gorgeous about that. And what happens on the inside is your body in constant fight. It's producing antibodies and it's attacking its tissue and where the breast implants are. But eventually, if you're still keeping them, it starts spreading everywhere. It goes to your thyroid, it goes to your lymph nodes. You're more prone to developing cancers. There's so much that's going wrong. I have an acquaintance. She had breast implants for a few years and she's seen over 100 different doctors because she'd have symptoms after symptoms, and none of them, Ringel, would connect it to her breast implants. And I finally said, listen, there are forums out there. Go talk to women who had them removed. She started to look into it, had them removed, and a few months later, she was back to normal after the body detoxed. A beauty treatment, and for some of us, we justified. Well, it's not vanity, it's for life qualities, to get a job, it's something else. Now, if you're really desperate to increase your girl's size, do a fat transplant. At least it doesn't have lethal side effects like that. But for us women, our vanity, and this goes not back to just our vanity, but our programming is working against us. Now, we gave you the big 9 reasons of why women are more prone to getting sick than men, but we will not have served you unless we gave you 9 ways to get out of those situations. So we're going to go through them one by one, and we are so open to hearing back from you. As you're going to go through these reasons, and if you have any questions, all you have to do is shoot us an email through our website. So you can go to www.360impacthealth, go to the contact page and shoot us an email. But it starts very, very simple. Way number 1 to fix it is put yourself first. That goes back to Ringel, what you mentioned earlier is in that proverbial joke that if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. This is really, if mama is not healthy, if you are not putting yourself first, then it doesn't matter how hard you're working for your family if you are not there to enjoy the fruit of your labor. And your family is also not going to be enjoying what you're creating for them if you're gone out of their lives. I work with women, Ringel, and with men who were near death already because the thyroid condition would be so advanced. And they're still pushing and pushing and pushing. And the big question is, what happens when you're not there? Yeah.
And that is the one part. Another part, we are setting an example for our kids. And if we do not show how to love ourselves, what do they learn? The same, to struggle, to hustle, to not take care of ourselves. And this is what we see. And we will cover in the next episode about generational things and trauma. But this is how we set an example. Everything starts from us. Our health starts from us, our happiness, and our family's happiness and health. Everything comes back to us. Even in the religion point, it says, love yourself as you love your neighbor. And we all love everybody else except ourselves, right?
Well, actually, let me correct you on that, being that I have some theological training. The part that Ringel mentioned is love your neighbor as you love yourself. So what do most people do? They go loving their neighbor. And the neighbor is everybody from your kid to your spouse, to your mother, father, and a community member, whoever else. But it is a totally misread, misquoted scripture because it should read like this. Learn to love yourself so you know how to love your neighbor truly. Because most of us who love our neighbors, we loathe the company of the most important person in our lives, and that is us.
And it's everywhere. If you would see, you go on the plane, what does it tell you? Put the mask on yourself first so you can help others. What does it say? Fill your cup first so you can, serve others from the full cup, not from the empty cup. So everything is related and everything comes from us. So that's the number one. We have to learn to prioritize ourselves, love ourselves, take care of ourselves. And that is how we live.
Yeah, but I do love the point that you brought up. And thank you for that. We are the best unspoken examples of what our children will follow. We can do what Ringel did with her children. You eat all the healthy stuff, but I'm going to check down unhealthy stuff. Guess what they're going to learn? Not what mommy's telling them what to do, what mommy's telling them not to do. That's what they're going to go for.
And we teach by example. We follow by example. It's nature. It's a nature of human, and not even human. It's a nature of any animal. See, in the nature, animals follow their parents by example, by their behavior, by everything. If we will tell by book what to do, but we behave differently, they will not hear, they will follow it.
Yeah, so we need to be really mindful not to create a generation of boys and girls who are even sicker than us. We actually need to scale back down, and we need to do the next thing is get support of people from people who are smarter than us. That means sometimes we're not strong enough to speak up for ourselves. Sometimes we need an advocate to speak on our behalf. It could be your spouse. It could be a coach or a mentor. We already know that most doctors will not be those people because they simply don't know what to do next, which we'll all discuss, which is simply identifying the root cause of your illness. I, in my practice, identified, Ringel, over 18 possible root causes of what can create a hormone thyroid or an autoimmune condition. Most doctors do this. Your numbers are off. Let's give you this prescription medication. Oh, that did not work. Let's give you more and more. Let's just cut it out. We cannot address that endometriosis, endometrial growth. It's too much. It's too painful for you. Let's take uterus out. But they're not telling you that endometrial growth can spread out outside of uterus and go throughout your body and into your spinal column. But because they don't address the root cause of the problem, the disease continues. They just eliminated a symptom or two just to create 20 more. So the way to fix this is step 2 and 3 is get a mentor who is smarter than you in this specific area. You might have a PhD. You might be like Ringel. Ringel has a master's in psychology. I do not. But in this area, when it comes to health and self-advocacy, I had superior knowledge. So she came, she learned, her husband is happy, his wife is back. The children still have their mommy. She doesn't have to pray to die anymore. But unless you get the support that you need, you will end up falling prey to the same conditions and root causes that made you sick in the first place.
And I think the big thing is that like, even if I had psychology degree and even our doctors, they have medical degrees, what doesn't connect for me and what connected when I came to your program was that usually we treat human by parts. If it's physical, we treat the symptom, the physical. If it's mental, we treat the mental, this. But we as a human, we are whole, we are one. So it is physical body, it's your mental, emotional health, it's spirituality, it's your intuition, it's everything. And if one part is out, it will affect every single part of your life. So that's what it is. You have to pay attention why you are not feeling okay and why the doctors doesn't help and why medication doesn't help, because they're treating, just scratching the surface. That's why when I graduated from psychology, it still missed something. It still wasn't 100% because treating just one issue, it doesn't resolve the whole situation. Eventually.
And this leads me to another point that's connected to this. When you get a mentor or specialist to help you, you have to look for somebody who has a holistic approach. And by holistic, I don't mean supplements. It looks at a whole person. If I had identified over 18 possible root causes of what causes health conditions and illnesses, most people will have to go see 18 different practitioners to start addressing one at a time. Imagine that your Rolodex is going to be filled with, you go to this person or that person or that person, and most of them will have conflicting opinions on how to treat you.
That's what it is. People look for weight loss program. People go to doctors, get medication affect their weight. They're still frustrating about that. They don't sleep, then they don't do this, and it's overwhelming and it's creating stress. So when you see and have the specialist and holistic, mentor or somebody who went through what you are going and has a broad of whatever is happening with you as a whole, that really matters and that really makes a difference. That's what it helped for me. Even if I had a degree, I was like, I can tell people what to do, but I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know where is it coming from.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of MDs, PhDs, everything else in between, the whole alphabet soup. We can't possibly specialize in everything in our life.
Yes.
If somebody has a PhD in whether it's psychology or something else, it doesn't mean that they understand nutrition. It doesn't mean that they understand trauma. So it's really, really important to know who you're talking to. Don't go to people that have only the book knowledge. You want somebody who has practical hands-on knowledge. And these are my criteria. Did they produce that outcome for themselves, for their clients, and has it been consistent, and does it last long term? Anything can work short term. Listen, you can lose weight by going through chemotherapy. It does not mean it's a good way to lose weight.
Yes.
Right? So we're looking for, and this is way number 4 to address our health issues, is look for natural tools because you're a natural human being. Look for holistic tools because you're a whole human being that will address things on that level. You cannot go put a pill into somebody's body who is struggling, maybe was abused and had sexual trauma in childhood, and they're still carrying that in their body, but you're trying to kind of shove it down with pills and quiet it down, while the whole time all that needs to happen is that trauma needs to be worked through and released.
And if I can add, it would be simplify, because everything is too much information. We do research, we go to different doctors, they give us different information, and we get overwhelmed and we don't know what to follow, what is true, what is not. So simplifying, reducing all these supplements, reducing all these programs, having one mentor that can, help you, it's the key, because the less is more in every single situation. And even with our health and modern life, the life is overwhelming itself with social media, technologies, business, craziness, and everything. we are overwhelmed enough. So we need to simplify to feel better in this
Yes.
case.
Couldn't agree more with that, which leads me to way number 5, and that is that we need to start releasing that stress and trauma. You just mentioned the stress, and yes, there are some stress coping techniques that people have, but stress release goes so much deeper. The stress that most of us live in is chronic stress. It's spread out. If we were to talk about cavemen, there would be a stress, big stress, and then they go back to normal living. And you and I are going to do a podcast on evolution, the evolution of human psyche. That's something we're going to dive into in the future. But what we have gone through is we created this beautiful life filled with technology and beautiful homes and beautiful this. And now we're constantly filled with stress, trying to keep up with bills and trying to keep up with the expectations that we just talked about and all of the things, and working multiple jobs. Sometimes the stress is constant. It's not temporary. So without really going and addressing the root cause of the trauma and stress, releasing it from your body. And I believe that for the most part, talk therapy does not work. It's helpful in some ways to release some temporary stress and trauma, but to really resolve the deep-seated trauma in our bodies that goes beyond just talking about it, needs to be done on this energy level where we can dive deep and disconnect you, and you can disconnect yourself from that trauma that happened to you, and not only to push away from it, but integrate it so much through your process. And we'll talk about trauma on the next podcast, but to synthesize it and then look for how it served you, as opposed to just let's deal with it and move on so we never have to think about it again. Anytime we approach trauma that way, it will always come back. It will always haunt us. So my big thing is synthesize, integrate, benefit.
Yes. And another thing, what came up just when you were talking about that we avoid to deal with our trauma because it's uncomfortable, because we don't like how we feel. So we start and we numb again because
take an antidepressant, take anti-anxiety medication.
Taking alcohol, whatever it is, it's numbing all those emotions and feelings instead of going through that. And going through that, it's not comfortable. That's why people are avoiding it. And talk therapies doesn't help, because talking, it's not releasing. It's temporary. But that's why our psychologists are booked all the time, because they continue talking. They feel temporarily relieved, but they need to come back to keep up with that feeling good for,
it's another drug of itself, right?
It is.
It creates another dependency, because now you need somebody to talk to release it. Where my goal when we work with somebody, our goal is to give people the tools that they need to identify it or release it, then integrate it. I go deep on this topic, Ringel, and you've already read that book that my husband and I published last year. It's called Son of a Whore. I went through a traumatic experience in my life. My husband was raised in a lot of trauma. What I had to get in my life is that living beyond forgiveness, beyond needing to work through trauma and get away from it, but more integrate it and synthesize it in a way to make it a slave to me and I'm its master, and look for the way that it can serve me, as opposed to keep running away from the event that broke me. So instead of what I did, I turned around, I healed myself from within. And then when I think about the trauma, I no longer go into hyperventilation or living in guilt or in shame. I go, it served me. Now it's fully integrated.
Exactly. Even like from psychology part and energetically part, I know one thing, that emotions has to be released physically. We can't just, think about them. It's impossible to think and feel better. We have to release them physically. So if you are angry, you go and punch something, you scream, you do, if you are sad, you cry, it's physical. If you are happy, you laugh. If it's physical, emotions are physically need to be released out of the body. If you don't do that, if you suck it up, if you numb them, they're sitting in the physical body. And that's eventually coming out as a symptoms, as an illness.
Absolutely.
So stress, emotions, they have to be released. They have to be expressed and experienced. It's no other way.
1000% yes. And through this process, and this leads me to way number 6 to start healing, is to avoid perfectionism. When we are working on releasing those emotions, when we are working on starting to love ourselves and put ourselves as a priority, we will mess up. We will fall back into
Mm.
our old ways. But we need to avoid perfectionism. Something has to give. If you have to choose between your sleep or working out for 2 hours so you can be slimmer and look beautiful in your body, choose sleep. It's okay. Something's got to give. Accept your body as it is in a moment where it is, so that when you get it to where you want it to be, you're already in love with this beautiful human being called you. Because if you don't, I had a client once, Ringel. She came to me. We worked on, she had hypothyroidism. She got it fixed. She lost 30 pounds. And then I saw her 3 years later. The weight was back on. I said, what happened? It's not possible to do what we did. And if you kept up with it, to gain it back. And she told me this. She said, when I lost the weight, I got so much attention from men that I didn't know what to do with it. I was not prepared for it. So she regained that weight as a self-protection mechanism. Had she prepared herself, this was many, many years ago, had she prepared herself in a process to be already in love with herself, when she got that attention, be like, of course, I'm wonderful. I'm great. Now, this was years and years ago before I integrated a lot of the methods that we use now working with clients. Now, when they achieve that slimmer body and they go, I'm already in love with myself because I already love myself through the process. But we need to avoid this perfectionism. We need to avoid trying to be the best mothers, the best spouses, the best. We're going to screw up. And you know what I do when I screw up? I go, what have I learned from it? Fantastic. Let's try not to do it again. Moving on. I release myself. There's no shame, no guilt attached. We're moving forward.
We have to learn, accept experiences as a lessons instead of mistakes. That helps a lot, because every single situation is a lesson. We learn something. We learn through good experiences. We learn through bad experiences, and we learn better through bad experiences. Apparently,
because psychologically they stick longer with us, right?
Yes, it's bigger impact on us, so that's how we learn it better. And on the other side, if you raise above this physical world and see yourself more just than the physical body, so you are already perfect. First of all, nobody and no one is like you. Nobody went your journey, and you are perfect the way you are. Your body is perfect because it allows you to breathe, to look, to touch, to feel, to hear, experience this earthly experience. It's already perfect. And if you look outside of the box and those norms and rules and society and everything what's ingrained and programmed in us, you start to look different at yourself and accept yourself. Because, like I say, nobody is like you. You are perfect because you are unique, and you having this body and this experience because you can experience this life with.
And the bonus here, which leads me to the next way to stop falling sick to everything that we're falling sick to, is when you stop striving for perfectionism and you start accepting yourself as you are now, you're not very likely to become a pushover, whether it's for a doctor, a family member, or whether it's a pastor, a friend, whoever it is. You are now speaking for yourselves. You're meeting your own needs. You're in love with who you are. So you know when to say no, when you know how to advocate for yourself. You know how to say, listen, maybe I need 5 opinions before I'm making a medically irreversible decision, such as thyroidectomy or hysterectomy. You become your own advocate. You are not going to be a pushover, because you know that you're living at cause. Whatever you're making a decision on, it's your decision. It's your outcome. And it goes back to avoid perfectionism, fall in love with who you are right now.
And it takes only first step. When you start doing that, and when you notice that world is not, falling apart, nobody is saying something bad, back, they just, respond to you. If you come with confidence and stand up for yourself, nobody can tell you anything, because at the end of the day, it's your decision, it's your body, it's your life, it's everything. It's eventually when you start seeing that it's nothing so scary and it's nothing bad to stand up for yourself, and you step out of your comfort zone and start doing this, you will start living this every single day and apply into all the areas of your life.
Which actually will lead to stress release.
Yes.
Because you don't walk around with, I could have, I should have, I would have, oh my God, I wish I had done something. And this leads me to way number 8. And that is now that we're falling in love with ourselves, we're speaking up for ourselves, we still need to be mindful to carve out a daily meeting with ourselves. It
My
can be
favorite
through
part.
meditation. It can be reading a book, taking a bath. I don't care what it is, whether it's a 2 5-minute breaks or 1 50-minute break, you need to prioritize yourself. So yesterday I took some time off to be with Isabella. Her birthday's coming up. I gave her an early birthday gift and we had fun. And then I go, okay, now it's mommy's time. Mama's going to go take a bath. And I have a child who loves me so much. He's very attached to me, not through the lack of me trying to kind of detach myself. This is her personality. And she just goes to tears. I want to be with mommy. Don't go take a bath. Right. And as a woman, I go, oh my God, what, am I a bad mother? I want to go and be alone. Of course, I know I'm not. But even as a coach, I can fall prey to those emotions because as mothers, the strings of our heart can be easily manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
But remember that I needed that meeting with myself. I said, listen, I love you. You're going to go be with your dad. Nothing's going to happen to you in 40 minutes. And I'll see you when I see you. Now, two things are happening this way. A, I'm a great example to my daughter that when she grows up, when she chooses to have children, she will be able to say, I matter.
Yes.
I'm not going to be a pushover. You cannot just meet your needs and then I need me. And then the other thing is I'm carving out this space, which is also way number 9 to stay in balance with yourself and your health, is to find my purpose, to find harmony. What is my calling? How do I live in this moment? Maybe for the next 5 years, I live as a mother and that fulfills me if it's my decision. And that's fantastic. But what if my purpose for the next 2 years is, it has been, my book has been on pause for a long time. And yesterday I picked it up and start writing again. Maybe my purpose, part of my purpose now is to write a book. So I need to create that space. I need to start feeding that part of my spiritual journey for myself. And it starts with carving out that time. And we do it in a program in so many different ways. You can cover some of them, but I'll just throw out a few. The ones that I like. I do gratitudes in the morning. I do them at night. I usually go and spend some time in nature almost every single day, whether it's a walk. I love kayaking. I love hiking. I find a time to read or watch something that will educate me or feed my soul. I'm one of those geeks that I would prefer a documentary over a romantic movie. Most of my books on this bookshelf, and I have two that are filled to the brim in my reading room, they're non-fictional books. I have only one shelf of fictional books. That's it. So it feeds my soul. I know where to meet myself. So when the day's demands happen, I go into the day prepared. So I don't serve my family or my clients out of an empty cup, but it's a filled up to the brim. Now I have something to share. So those are my favorite ways. What are your favorite ways, Rimgali?
I think that I would recommend for people, for women, first of all, who never done that, who feel that, I don't know how to do, I don't have time, I don't do this. Start by simple questions. How do I feel? What makes me happy? What do I like? Because through years, through programming, through pleasing people and being perfect, trying to be perfect and everything, we forget even to ask ourselves. So start from asking, and then it depends on you, what you like. Some people like yoga, some people like running, some people like baths, some people like meditation, some people like different things, but always follow what makes you happy, follow that excitement, and give time and prioritize. Start with some small, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, and increase eventually. Do twice 15 minutes a day. Just find out what works with your schedule, what works with your family, what works with yourself, but just do it, because nothing happens if you don't start doing it. Everything needs, we cannot create and get the results only from thinking and planning. We need to take action steps, and the action steps are important ones. So make the list, ask questions, start from one small thing and implement, increase, and just do it.
I love it. A lot of us have what I call wishful thinking. We
Yes.
think that it's dreams, but they're not dreams. It's wishful thinking. We go, I want to have a bakery, or I want to have a business, or I want to have something else. And then I always ask questions when I coach somebody in business. I go, well, what steps have you taken in order to achieve that dream? You get like, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm just dreaming about it. It's called wishful thinking. So nothing happens by trying. Some people say, well, I'll try it. My daughter, I'll already teach her this. We don't try, we do. It's
Yeah.
okay if we fail because we fail forward, we learn from it, but we don't ever try something, we do it. It makes it very easy. And again, when you don't know how to do it, you get a mentor, the mentor gets you there. But what a great point. We don't, a lot of us go like this, Ringel, and I've seen this with women especially. Well, one day when I have the time, then I'll
Mm,
start working on it. And that one day will never come. It's kind of like when we first got married, Dimitri and I were looking for when the time is right, we're going to have a baby. And then I had hypothyroidism, and then I had infertility. And I go, dang, I wish I didn't wait for the perfect day and just got knocked up right out when we got married. That would have been perfect, because the perfect day to become a parent never happens. It's usually, oh my God, I wish I had started sooner for most of us. The same goes for your health. You cannot
yes.
wait to have, when I'm going to have 5 hours a week available for me, you make it happen. Something has to give. One of our clients right now, she just graduated. She worked with me for a year, and she achieved tremendous outcomes. She lost nearly 30 pounds, got rid of all of her symptoms. She's off of thyroid medication. And one of the things that we're working on, she wanted more weight loss, and she was pursuing a business project. And then we had a conversation, and she said, I made a decision that had to go on pause, that had to give, because now I am very focused on weight loss. And because I need that extra hour a day to go and work out, my business endeavors will have to be on pause, and I'm going to dial down my goals a little bit. It was so wise of her to recognize something has to give. So in
Yes.
order for us to create those 5 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, you have to take it from somewhere. Don't take it from your sleep. We need it.
Mm,
So take it from somewhere else. It could be from your TV time. It could be from you staying at work extra hours. And because that doesn't matter. I read a quote somewhere a couple of weeks ago that if you die today, you will be replaced at your job within the next 2 to 4 weeks.
yes.
That puts things into perspective. That's how unimportantly important we are, right? So if we can be replaced, that means we can sacrifice that time, that promotion sometimes, but it depends what is more important to us, our health or the promotion.
Yes. And when you are healthy, there will always be new opportunities. Life is always serving. We always get new opportunities if we are open for them, if we ask, if we are ready. So I always say that first comes first, and everything falls into place when it's time, when you are ready. And again, when you are healthy, you are happy, life is happy, family is happy, everyone is happy. And the
And then
most
you can
important,
enjoy that life that you're working so hard to build.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We have given you 9 reasons why women are getting sicker at a much higher rate than men, and 9 ways you can address it. If you are in a place in your life when you want it addressed like yesterday, and you don't want to go through a DIY version of this journey, all you have to do is reach out to us. We'll be happy to evaluate with you if we have the tools that are needed to help you get to the other side when you are no longer sick, when you are in love with your body and yourself, when you release the trauma and the stress you had, identified all of the root causes of your illness, and you have a clear cut plan on how to achieve your health instead of years in a matter of a few short weeks or a few short months. There are a couple of ways that we can make it happen. First one is you can schedule a complimentary 15-minute call. We call them health clarity calls because we help you get clarity on what's possible for you. To make it happen, click on the link in the description of this podcast or go to www.360impacthealth.com/schedule and grab your complimentary call with us. Another way that you can do it, and this is something both Rimgali and I are excited about, is you can join our life-changing app. It is called 360-Degree Life. In the app, we give you the tools to identify all possible root causes of your health condition. Inside the app, you also get support of our coaches, and the community of like-minded women who are already achieving healthy outcomes. And there's also a health promoting and weight slimming diet that you can take advantage of. So you can do both ways. You can either get to the app, and to get there is, again, very easy. Go to 360impacthealth.com/app, read about all of the benefits, join the app, get all the resources that we offer you, draw on our expertise. Or first, if you want to explore if that's for you, then hop on that call with us. With that said, both Ringel and I want to wish you a fantastic rest of the day. And we both are going to see you on the next episode of the Health Wizard podcast, when we're going to take a deep dive into how generational trauma creates hormone, thyroid, and autoimmune conditions. And then we'll tell you how you can start releasing and resolving the trauma for good. Have a fantastic rest of the day. And one last thing before we log off is, if you loved this podcast and you loved what you learned today, please do us a favor. Share it with as many people as you can find. Share it with your friends, co-workers, aunts, uncles, we don't care, strangers on the street. Hand it over to them and tell them that it will change their lives. And of course, if you love what you're hearing, make sure to head on over to your favorite podcasting platform and give us a 5-star review. We'd greatly appreciate it, and it will make us more visible to more women who need health and support like you do. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed today's topic. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the Health Wizard podcast, and please don't forget to tell others about it. If you would like to get more information about me and what I do, how I help amazing human beings just like you to achieve their dream health, go to www.360impacthealth.com. Go to the contact page and shoot me a note. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode of the Health Wizard podcast. This is your host, Yelena, wishing you optimal natural health.